Christmas Eve turned into a nightmare across California. Roads vanished, mountains collapsed, and entire towns were cut off as relentless atmospheric rivers triggered flash floods and deadly mudslides. This was not a normal storm, and the worst was still ahead. Rain began falling along the California coast early on Christmas Eve, quiet at first, almost deceptive. For many residents, it sounded like nothing more than another winter shower tapping against rooftops and windows. But within hours, that gentle rainfall transformed into something far more dangerous. What started as steady precipitation rapidly escalated into a statewide emergency. As roadways disappeared under rising water, hillsides began to fail, and emergency alerts lit up phones across vast portions of California. The situation was changing by the minute, and the scale of the threat was becoming impossible to ignore. This was not an ordinary storm system. A powerful and persistent series of atmospheric rivers slammed into the West Coast, funneling enormous amounts of moisture directly into California. Drainage systems that were designed for seasonal rainfall were overwhelmed almost instantly. Rivers and creeks surged toward critical levels, spilling beyond their banks and sending fast-moving water through streets, neighborhoods, and low-lying communities. In many areas, flash flooding developed so quickly that people barely had time to react. As conditions deteriorated, voices from the ground captured the growing sense of alarm. "So, not only are we stuck in Wrightwood," one resident said, disbelief evident in his voice. "We're stuck between Heath Creek and Sheep Creek." Another tried to break the tension with humor, joking, "Hey Bob, I know where you might be able to get a good deal on a used BMW." But beneath the laughter was fear. Roads were disappearing, escape routes were vanishing, and the water kept coming. As the storms expanded inland, state officials moved swiftly. Governor Gavin Newsom declared a state of emergency covering Los Angeles, Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, San Diego, and Shasta counties. Rainfall rates were increasing rapidly, and the threat to both life and property was becoming unmistakably clear. These were not just any counties. Many of these same regions were still recovering from destructive wildfires just 1 year earlier. Those fires had left behind burn scars. Areas where vegetation that once held hillsides together was gone. Now, those scarred landscapes were dangerously unstable, facing an extreme risk of debris flows and mudslides. The numbers alone were staggering. More than 43 million people across California, southern Nevada, and northwest Arizona found themselves under flood watches. This included residents in some of the largest metropolitan areas in the western United States: Los Angeles, San Francisco, Sacramento, San Diego, and even Las Vegas. Forecasts warned of rainfall rates reaching 1 inch per hour or more, an intensity capable of overwhelming urban infrastructure in minutes and turning ordinary streets into fast-moving rivers. And the danger was no longer theoretical. In Sacramento County, the California Highway Patrol confirmed at least one fatality in what was described as an apparent weather-related crash. Saturated roads, reduced visibility, and sudden flooding created deadly driving conditions. That single loss of life stood as a grim reminder of how quickly winter storms can turn fatal when people underestimate their power. Among the most critical and rapidly evolving situations was the mountain community of Wrightwood, nestled in the San Gabriel Mountains. There, relentless rainfall triggered multiple debris flows. Mud, rocks, and shattered trees cascaded down slopes, washing out Highway 2 and cutting off access in and out of the town. In a matter of hours, Wrightwood became isolated. Authorities issued mandatory evacuation warnings for areas stretching from Pine Street to the Los Angeles County line. For the rest of the community, officials urged residents to shelter in place as conditions worsened. The message was clear: leaving could be just as dangerous as staying. By early afternoon, flooding and mud flows continued to intensify. San Bernardino County officials confirmed that Highway 2 was completely impassable due to massive debris slides. Emergency crews responded to multiple reports of flooding and possible structural damage to homes. Door-to-door checks began as first responders moved through high-risk zones, urging residents to evacuate immediately, while rain continued to fall without pause. "This was the way I was going to come home from the gas station," one resident said, pointing to a flooded route now buried in mud and debris, "which I didn't go to." That single decision may have saved his life. Across the region, emergency responders were stretched to their limits. Additional fire engines, hand crews, heavy equipment, and swiftwater rescue units were requested as call volumes surged. Crews worked around the clock, rescuing people trapped in vehicles and homes, often in dangerous conditions with fast-moving water and unstable terrain. In areas like Hesperia and the high desert, motorists found themselves stranded as floodwaters overtook roadways with little warning. "Jimmy, be careful," one voice warned over the chaos. "It's flooded by the freeway, you guys." Those warnings echoed across social media and emergency channels as residents tried desperately to help one another avoid danger. Meteorologists with the National Weather Service issued increasingly urgent warnings. According to forecasters, the worst conditions might still be ahead. The corridor stretching from the San Gabriel Mountains through the San Fernando Valley and into the Santa Monica Mountains was expected to experience the highest rainfall totals, the strongest wind gusts, and the greatest risk of flooding and landslides. Winds were forecast to gust between 40 and 50 miles per hour, raising concerns about downed trees and widespread power outages. Already, more than 100,000 customers across California were without electricity. For many, the combination of flooding and power loss created a dangerous situation, particularly for vulnerable populations and those relying on medical equipment. Adding another layer of danger, thunderstorms were embedded within the rain bands. These storms brought the threat of cloud-to-ground lightning, an unusual but serious risk during winter storms in California. Forecasters also cautioned that brief tornadoes could not be ruled out anywhere along the California coast. Though rare, the possibility underscored just how volatile and unpredictable this storm system had become. A high-risk designation for excessive rainfall remained in effect for parts of Southern California. This category is issued on only a small percentage of days each year, yet historically, it accounts for a disproportionate share of flood-related fatalities and damage. Major transportation corridors were directly in the crosshairs, including Interstate 10 from San Bernardino to Santa Monica, Highway 101 toward Thousand Oaks, Interstate 5 near Burbank and Santa Clarita, routes extending toward Pyramid Lake, and Interstate 210. Officials strongly advised against all non-essential travel. Roads could flood rapidly and without warning, they warned, leaving drivers trapped with little chance of escape. This was not a routine storm. Conditions could and were changing rapidly. As evening approached, rainfall showed brief signs of easing in some areas, but forecasters warned this was only temporary. Another round of heavy rain was expected overnight, followed by additional waves on Thursday and Friday. The flood threat, debris flow risk, and need for swift water rescues were expected to continue for several days. In Wrightwood, anxiety remained high. Mud and debris continued to surge through parts of the community. Local leaders reported homes taking on water, with some residents scrambling to protect what little they could. Longtime residents said they had never seen rainfall of this intensity last this long. With roads cut off and resources stretched thin, the focus shifted almost entirely to life safety. Emergency crews worked tirelessly, navigating dangerous terrain, unstable slopes, and relentless weather in an effort to stabilize conditions and prevent further loss of life. Authorities continued urging people to stay off the roads, heed evacuation warnings, and remain alert as the situation evolved. This storm was not just another winter system. It was a stark reminder of the growing intensity of extreme weather events and the devastating consequences they can bring when they collide with vulnerable landscapes and densely populated regions. As California faced one of its most dangerous winter storm events in recent years, the message from officials was clear and urgent. Take this seriously, stay informed, and above all, stay safe. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.